You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Does the thought of going back to school and teaching class lessons overwhelm you? Out of everything in my school counseling career, classroom lessons were one of the things I felt the least prepared for. We definitely didn't learn this in grad school. I definitely made some mistakes along the way, which is why I want to share what I've learned with you. Join me in my free live masterclass, 3 Mistakes Counselors Make in the Classroom and What to Do Instead, where I'll be teaching you how to keep students engaged, manage behaviors, and measure your lessons' effectiveness so you can feel prepared and confident going into this year's lessons. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/mistakes to save your seat. Hey there, thanks for listening to a special bonus episode of School Counseling Simplified. So as you know, this month we've been focusing on classroom counseling lessons, and I just had too much to share, so I decided to throw in a little bonus episode for you guys. So this one will be kind of short, but basically I just wanted to share 3 tools for keeping students engaged during classroom lessons. So last week we were talking about classroom management, and I was saying how keeping students engaged is a great preventative strategy to keep everyone on task. And you may be thinking, okay, awesome, but how do I keep students engaged? So I wanted to share with you 3 fun lesson ideas you can do to do exactly that. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. First up, scoot games. So I love a scoot game. Now, I have to admit, I did not know what a scoot game was for a while. And when I first read about them, I thought the kids were like sitting on their bottom, scooting around the floor, like on a rug or something. Seriously. But that is not what a scoot game is. But the kids are moving around the room. So it requires a little bit of prep, but it's totally worth it. And a lot of it you can reuse. So what you're going to do is pick your topic. So for example, let's say self-control. And then I like to do 30 game cards. So you'll make 30 little cards with different questions on them. So true or false, maybe you'll do like 10 that are true or false, 10 that have scenarios, and the question being, were they showing self-control, yes or no? And then 10, which strategy should they use? And it would have a scenario and then, some multiple choice strategies. So the reason I like to do this is you don't want to use open-ended questions because it goes really fast. So on the cards, you would have the questions and you would place them around the room. So you could place them on student desks, you could tape them to the walls, you could put them on the floor, on some common spaces, whatever. You're just going to have them around the room, okay? So right when you get in the classroom, you're going to set that up. Then each student is going to have an answer sheet where they're going to record their answers. So it'll be a grid. And like I said, these are, yes or no questions or true or false questions. Or if it's like the third example I mentioned with the coping strategies, you would list like 3 coping strategies and then they could circle. So it's just for them to quickly read the question and to circle an answer. So each student has their card, with the 30 different boxes, and they don't have the question on there, it's just the responses. I'm going to link to one in the show notes. You guys can check it out because it is kind of hard to explain this verbally. But what the kids do is you assign them to a number. So you say, okay, Mark, you're number 1, Betty, number 2, Enrique, number 3, Julio, number 4, Andre, number 5, Danielle, number 6, and so on. And then all the way, even if you don't have 30 kids, let's say you just have, 20 kids, that's fine. Fill it up to 20. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, start. And the kids are going to read their question, and then they're going to mark their answer on their answer sheet. And then you'll say scoot after a few, like a minute, 30 seconds a minute. You say scoot, and then the kids scoot to the next card. Now, when they get to the next card, they have to answer it. So if they're at number 1, they're going to move to number 2. If they're at number 2, they're going to move to number 3, and so on. Now, it does loop back around. So if they're at number 30, and they answer it, then they need to move to number 1, and then they'll answer it. Now, a few things to consider. One is reading buddies. So you want to do this with strong readers, so I don't recommend it in the super early grades. And then you want to do, you want everyone to be able to be involved and participate. So if you have some kiddos who are emerging readers or struggling readers, pair them with someone who is a good reader, and you could have them in pairs, This way they don't feel like they're not doing well at the game simply because they can't read fast enough. Another recommendation is to use music. Make it fun. I love to use the song Wipe Out. Wipe Out. And I'll pause. And then the kids know that's when it's their turn to scoot. And they can't scoot until you say scoot. So So music's a fun thing to do with that one. It's really interactive. Then we all come back to our desks and we review the answer sheet. And I, ask as the class, like, okay, true or false? Self-control, an example of self-control is hitting the wall. And then they would say false. That was a bad example, but you get what I'm saying. And then it's kind of cool because on the coping strategies example, that is a little subjective. So you may have in there, you could have like 2 negative coping strategies and 1 positive one, and you're always looking for them to choose the positive one. Or you could have 3 positive ones, and then different people pick different things, and that could start a class discussion. So a Scoot game is a great tool to use to keep your kiddos engaged. They're a lot of fun. And like I said, it does require a little prep, but you really just have to reprint the answer sheets each time because the game cards, you could like laminate and then reuse them in every class. Next up, escape rooms. So I love a good escape room. You may be familiar. I have a lot that are called missions, so like Mission Impossible themed, like Mission Meet the Counselor, Mission Tattling versus Reporting. But basically what you do is you split up the class into groups, and then they have different stations to work at, and they have to solve the mission or solve the puzzle at each station. So, they're over there, and it'll say like, unscramble these words to figure out the sentence, and the sentence would be the definition of who the school counselor is. Or one might be a true or false sort, something like that. And then they tell you when you're finished, and then you go over and check, and you confirm, yes, that's right, move on to the next one. And whoever gets all 5 missions complete first wins. So it's fun. It's a little more competitive, a little higher prep for sure. It definitely takes some time to prep and print everything, but it's so fun and so engaging. I did it with 5th graders, and they just loved it. Again, that's for your upper elementary. I wouldn't do that with the little guys. It's a little too much for them. And lastly, game shows. So if you're looking for a no prep but super engaging strategy here, I recommend game shows. So this is like Jeopardy style, digital. I love using these. I have a Meet the Counselor one as well. I'll link to these in the show notes so you can check out examples of what I'm talking about. But you split the class into 2 teams, team 1 and team 2. They can have team names, make it fun, a little competitive. And then they get to answer the questions. Oh, I'll take role of the school counselor for 200 points. Or whatever, and then they answer the question. If they get it correct, they get the points. If they get it incorrect, then the other team gets a chance to answer the question. So it's really fun. The kids have always loved it. You can't go wrong with like classic Jeopardy style game show. Okay, guys, I hope you found this episode helpful. These are just 3 tools to keep students engaged, but don't forget to download that freebie I have for you that includes 15 strategies to increase engagement in classroom counseling lessons. So to get that, you can head to the link in the show notes or visit stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/engage to download it for free. Also, you've got to come to my free live masterclass, 3 mistakes counselors make in the classroom and what to do instead. I'll be teaching you how to keep students engaged, manage behaviors, and measure your lessons' effectiveness so you can feel prepared and confident going into this year's lessons. Now, I'm offering a few different times. It's next week, but like I said, a few different times are available. Pick the one that works best for you. You really don't want to miss this. It's going to be so awesome. So go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/mistakes to save your seat. Okay, guys, talk to you Tuesday.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.